I moved to Korea and it kind of made me a worse person. I can't have the job I'm applying for because of the color of my skin. And actually it's happened to me while I've been on dates. Tried to bully me in the workplace. I hold so much anxiety. Hey, I'm Ro, welcome in or welcome back to the gang. I have actually tried to record this video 2 or 3 times already in different ways, and it hasn't gone well because I don't really know how to articulate what I'm trying to say or to convey my feelings accurately in terms of this, because it's been kind of a year's worth of feelings accumulating. So here's to a 4th attempt. Let's hope it goes well this time. I don't want to do a disclaimer, but I feel like I need to, because when we get onto topics like this, it's not controversial, it's just my experience. But sometimes people make it feel like it's controversial and it's not. I am in no way attacking Korea. I think Korea's a wonderful country in so many different ways. And this is purely my experience, so please don't feel offended. But I feel like this video is important to do because I share so many of my good moments with you in the vlogs, so such as life, bad things happen too, right? So, one, I haven't been posting vlogs apart from the other day. I took a break for some weeks because it felt really inauthentic to be posting vlogs about how wonderful my life is and how I love going to all of these places when that just wasn't the experience that I was having. That's pretty much the long and short of that. So yeah, I moved to Korea and it kind of made me a worse person, and I'm gonna get into why. My mentality in terms of race, when I moved to Korea, I felt like it wasn't really a big deal. I wasn't really nervous, only to be in a new situation, but I wasn't nervous or anxious about how people would treat me or receive me, because I just came with the mentality that I am the abnormal thing in a normal situation. So if people stare, it's not that serious. They're just seeing an abnormal thing in what to them is a normal situation, right? So for example, if someone's walking down the street and they're used to seeing 100% Korean people and then they see one black person or one foreigner, understandably, that's the anomaly in that situation. So that makes sense. I very much had I want to educate and have these conversations with people. So if people are curious, they can ask me questions. I'm happy to have conversations so we can have cultural exchange. And I was very open-minded. I wasn't easily offended, and I was so optimistic. So I was just really, when I moved, I was just really excited to learn and explore and to learn so much about the culture and the people and to get better at my job. That, in comparison to now I feel like I'm a lot more introverted. I don't think I'm really optimistic. I think I enter situations and in the back of my mind I hold so much anxiety about what could happen in that situation because of my experiences. I also think I'm a lot less trusting. I used to trust people really easily, maybe naively so, but I think I don't trust my surroundings very much, and I don't trust the people I'm around, and I don't trust people to keep me safe. Or if something was to happen to me, let's say on the train, on the street, I don't trust that anyone would really say anything. I think I'd have to deal with that situation on my own. As sad as that is, let me get into the series of events that have led to why my mentality has shifted to that. First reason was my previous school. I'm at a new school now. My first school, there was issues with everything, and in terms of how race was dealt with in the workplace, I feel like it was dealt with really poorly. Blessing and I, we're both black. We're the only people of color at my workplace. That's fine, that's not abnormal. We were treated as such. Like, some colleagues literally tried to get us fired, tried to bully me in the workplace. It was very much like, if you're not what we want, then we don't want you here. It was like that, but not said overtly in that situation. But there was a situation actually where classes that I was teaching got switched, and it was like, why were they switched? Oh, because they want a pretty teacher to teach their kids, a white teacher. Yeah, so just situations like that repeatedly, and that was like, okay. But at that time I was still ever the optimist, so I was just kind of like, okay, it's whatever. brush it off. Such is life, right? Look at the bigger picture. And then the next thing was job hunting. This one was the one that affected me a lot, I think. So around December and January, when I was looking for my current job, so looking for a new job, I went through the process of job hunting. When you're applying within the country, it should be easier, right? Because you've already got a year's worth of experience and they don't have to deal with the visa changes in such a complicated way because all the paperwork's done, and you should just get a pay bump. Anyway, it's one of the most challenging experiences I've personally had while I've been in Korea, because it was a constant like knocking you down. For example, I would apply for a job and send my CV, and in Korea there's not a discrimination law in terms of appearance, so you have to send your picture. That I found out later, but I didn't send my picture initially. So I'd send my CV and they'd be like, amazing, great CV, can you send your picture too? And either I wouldn't get a reply after I sent my picture to recruiters, or they'd reply saying, okay, where do you want to be located? And I'd say, I want to be in Seoul. And they'd say, it's not gonna happen because they want pretty teachers or because they want white teachers. I'd researched, so I knew that that was something that could happen. I thought it was something that was more rare, to be honest, because I hadn't heard of it that recently. Yeah, so that's that part. And then once I got through the process of finding a recruiter that would take me on, again, I'd have conversations on the phone, on Skype, and they'd kind of be like, where do you want to be located? Great CV, what kind of pay are you looking for? And I'd say da 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 da. And they'd say, you're not going to be in Seoul. The Seoul schools don't want black people. And I was confused because I was like, we're having a conversation about my CV and you're telling me that I've got a whole bunch of experience and that in some situations I'm overqualified for the job I'm applying for. But then you're telling me that I can't have the job I'm applying for because of the colour of my skin. And that is what's crazy to me. After the first time it happened, I said, okay. Second time, I was like, right. Fifth, sixth, seventh, that's when it started to get to me, because I'm not gonna bore you with my backstory in terms of education. I've worked hard to be where I am. So it's crazy to me that I spent years building up my CV and gaining all of this experience for someone to in 30 seconds be like, well, you can't have the job because you're black. That to me was like, what is the point of any of this? What a waste of money on uni, what a waste of my time moving abroad, but even before Korea. It just felt like all of this is a waste of time, and it felt like I was fighting this constant battle that I was losing, because it didn't matter that I'm intelligent or that I'm a good teacher and that I'm passionate about my job. It literally just mattered that I'm not white. So my current job, I actually ended up not using a recruiter to get. Another thing was in terms of pay. I know there's a certain bump you're meant to get each year, and so I asked for that bump. I wasn't asking for more. In fact, I think I 100% should have asked for more retrospectively thinking. And one recruiter who was actually a foreigner, he was like to me, to be honest, you're not special. You're X, Y, and Z, X, Y, and Z. And in an email, I would actually put the email on the screen, but I don't want to get sued. But he was like, you're X, Y, and Z, da da da. So what you're asking for is too high and no one's gonna pay that. Well, I want to say to you, big man, guess what? I get more than that now. So that's that. I'm now in an incredibly diverse school. I think I'm one of like 5 black people. So yeah, but anyway, the school's amazing, so it worked out in the end. So that's the positive to that bit. Okay, the next thing for me was, obviously I told you the story about when I got spiked in Busan probably about a month ago. Like I said to you, the way that I was treated during that time really affected me mentally in the following couple of weeks, because I just really lost trust in the people around me. Not because I thought people were gonna spike me. I felt like if anything happened to me, like people's attitude towards me and behavior around me, if someone says something to me, no one's gonna defend me. If I, God forbid, fell down and like fainted on the floor, I feel like I'd just be left there. And so it's that lack of safety for me that was triggered by the way I was treated in the hospital, added on to how I'm feeling. Some people might be thinking, how is someone treating you badly got to do with you being black? Well, globally it's known, or not known if you don't know, that black women aren't believed when it comes to medical problems. And this was just another case of that, to be honest, because we're seen as strong. I guess it just comes down to the animalization of black people and being treated as if you're over exaggerating about things because you're seen almost as animalistic, so you're not treated with the same care and gentleness that your counterparts would be treated with. This isn't a video essay about that, but you can read up on that. I'll try and leave some links below. That was the impact that that had on me. So that's the big stuff, and then the small stuff, and actually I think it's the small stuff that affects me more because it's affecting my day-to-day life. There are some things which are life problems. For example, if someone lost their job, God forbid, that's a life problem. Or if someone in your life passed away, God forbid, that is a life problem. And there are some things where I'm like, is this a life problem or is this a career problem? And I'm gonna analyze this later in the video. So what happens quite frequently is that we'll be going into a restaurant and then they'll be like, oh, there's no more food, or sold out, or there's no more seats, but we can see the table. And actually it's happened to me while I've been on dates and they've been like, actually we're not serving food anymore. I don't know, obviously it's embarrassing, one, but it's also just, I don't know how much I need to explain that. I'm sure you can understand how it makes me feel. And if it's once or twice, it's like, okay. But when it happens continuously, it's really exhausting to deal with, and I think it's quite hard to remain optimistic in those situations. We were going to afternoon tea the other week, and in the elevator on the way up we had this conversation and we were like, oh, I really hope they treat us well. We had a whole conversation about it and I was kind of like, wait, we shouldn't even be discussing this because why should they not treat us well? But we've been in situations before where we've paid a lot of money for something. Even if we weren't paying money, that's besides the point, but we paid a lot of money for something and then they've made things particularly difficult for us. And it's given me anxiety going to restaurants, not just restaurants, but going into certain situations because of the fear of, oh, are they gonna reject me in this situation just because I'm black or just because I'm a foreigner? Also, this has been when I'm both with foreigners and when I'm with Koreans, so it hasn't really mattered that much. Another small thing is they'll have their masks down, which they shouldn't anyway, but then they'll start pulling them up. I'm around them, or in the elevator they'll turn to the corner. The logic isn't there, I'm not gonna lie to you, but fine. Or someone will like pull their partner away from me, like a guy will pull his girlfriend away as if, what am I gonna do, rob you? I don't understand that at all. Body language is such a huge signifier to how people feel about you. So just me minding my own business and observing how people behave around me is so interesting, but also so hurtful, because it's like, I'm really just trying to mind my own business and go about my day, so you don't need to treat me like I'm walking COVID. Let's talk about reasons why. I like to look at things from a multi-dimensional perspective, so let's get into it a little bit. So one of the reasons why obviously I've been treated in this way, my experience, I don't know about all black people, I can't speak for everyone, but my experience is that the government have pushed this narrative that foreigners are spreading COVID. And it was reinforced, I think, a couple of months ago when the government made a mandate stating that foreigners in Seoul and Gyeonggi, which are the surrounding areas, had to get a mandatory COVID test. Now, you had a time limit to do so, and if you didn't do that, then you had to pay a fine, and obviously we're on visas, so it would affect your visa. So I got my test, and then I don't know the details, but I guess someone higher up was kind of like, this is kind of bad because we're not making everyone do this, we're just telling the foreigners to do this. I guess it's kind of xenophobic or whatever. Yeah, then it got retracted and didn't have to get it, so I think people in Seoul didn't have to get it in the end. But yeah, I got mine, so that was a bag of fun. The whole process just to me was giving Koreans a green flag to say, oh, actually, yeah, the way I treat people and the way that I act around foreigners is fine because my government's telling me that they're the ones who are spreading it. Let me not talk too much about the government before they try to sue me, but I can understand from a logical perspective why a scapegoat would be needed, but obviously I'm experiencing it so it's not fun. Thankfully that didn't escalate in that sense, to my knowledge. I can also recognize that people act out of fear, so I didn't have experience being in Korea prior to moving here to live and work. I didn't have pre-COVID experience. I moved here during the pandemic, probably like a year and some months ago. So I don't know what people were like beforehand. I can empathize with the fact that people were scared, or still are scared, I don't know, of getting COVID. So when people act out of fear, they tend to be the most extreme version of themselves. And if that wasn't the situation and they weren't scared, they probably wouldn't act like that. I can understand that. So it does explain in some ways why like the pulling away of people when I'm near them, or like turning to the corner, or whatever. I can rationalize it. But again, I have to at some point look after myself and be like, I'm rationalizing for them, but no one's rationalizing for me. Because if other people were also being rational, they would say, is facing the corner so that I'm further away from this person, is that gonna stop the spread of COVID should this person have it? But yeah, so that's my kind of 2 cents on that logic. I think language is probably a big thing as well. I don't speak Korean. My understanding's okay, but I don't speak very much Korean at all. And so that limits the amount of day-to-day interactions that I have with people. And actually I'm very lucky now, because the current area I live in, the majority of people are really nice, and I'll make an effort in Korean and they'll make an effort in English. But other areas I've been to is very much like, sometimes even if you try to speak the little Korean, you know, they'll kind of just be like, ugh, and scoff at you. But again, it's just my experience, and obviously that's limited the amount of connections, not romantic connections, but just general connections that I can make with people in the community. I think my lack of integration into Korea in general is maybe also to do with the language barrier, because the only people that I've really made good connections with are Koreans who speak English. That's obviously on me, and I think that's quite ignorant on my part, because I don't think you should move to a country and expect anyone to speak your language. In an attempt to try and be more positive, a couple of things I want to change and improve for the rest of my contract. I want to try more with the language and see if that helps me feel more settled. I also want to explore more. I want to see more of the country. Even just moving from my old location to my current location, I've had such a different experience and a much more positive one. So I do feel like seeing more of Korea will help me understand the country a bit more and understand people a little bit more. I really want to emphasize that this is just my experience, and I know plenty of people who are foreigners and who are black who have had completely different experiences, haven't had a single negative experience. So this is just mine. Please don't let this discourage you from visiting Korea. I just want you to be aware of these different things, and I wanted to share my experience, and hopefully it changes. Please. Anyway, if you've gotten this far, thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.